We're joined now from Washington by Jake Walles. He's the non-resident fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and he is a former U.S. ambassador to Tunisia. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for joining us. Let me start by asking you, this appointment of a Jewish minister, can we take that in the context of the wider success that the Arab Spring has had in Tunisia, despite some setbacks here and there?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on today. This is actually the 8th anniversary of the revolution in Tunisia, which ousted the former President Ben Ali. In the past 8 years since that revolution, Tunisia has indeed made some very important progress towards becoming a democracy. After some rough years in 2012, 2013, Tunisia was able to adopt a new constitution in 2014, a democratic constitution that respects individual liberties, including the rights of the minorities. 2014 also saw free and fair elections for a president and a government, a parliament in Tunisia. So there's been significant progress since 2014, but there's still challenges ahead.
Well, talk about what some of those challenges are.
Well, among the most important challenges, I think, is the economy. The economy still suffers from slow growth, lack of job creation. There's an important need, I think, to reform the economy to allow investors, both Tunisian and foreigners, to invest more freely in the economy and create jobs for the people. In addition to the economy, Tunisia is also looking ahead to new elections later this year for president and parliament. The 5-year terms from the elections in 2014 are about to run out. So the second election, I think, will be a significant milestone to see whether Tunisia can continue to maintain the progress towards a democratic future.
Mr. Ambassador, now I'm sure you know Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has spoken quite a bit about the new openings in the Arab and Muslim world, the diplomatic openings toward restoring relations or establishing relations with Israel. With Tunisia, and now with this new Jewish minister, what are the prospects of some kind of improvement in that area?
Well, I think the appointment of the minister demonstrates Tunisia's respect for its minorities, including its Jewish minority. But I don't think that extends to relations with Israel. There's still a very strong support within Tunisia for the Palestinian cause. There's also still some lingering resentment against Israel from the Israeli military operations in Tunisia in the 1980s directed at the PLO, which included some Tunisian casualties. So, you know, absent any progress in relations between Israel and the Palestinians, which I don't see down the road, at least in the short term, I don't think there's going to be any movement on the Tunisian side to normalize their open relations with Israel.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, I do think it's important for us to note that Tunisia's ruling party, and we spoke about the moves toward democracy, its ruling party is actually, or bills itself as a Muslim party, something that automatically has a negative connotation in much of the West. But why does it apparently seem different in Tunisia compared to some of its neighbors, Egypt, and of course in many other places in the region?
Well, Tunisia's Islamist party, it's known as Ennahda, which means Renaissance. It's a much more moderate philosophy that it's adopted compared to some of its counterparts elsewhere in the Muslim world. This, I think, reflects Tunisia's history, which is more moderate, more open to other ideas. And they've also, the Ennahda party has been more pragmatic, I think, than its counterparts. It's not the ruling party, it's just one party among a larger coalition. They have understood that they don't command a majority in Tunisian society. They did not have a majority in either of the elections. So they've tried to be, in effect, a junior partner and work with non-Islamist parties to try to form a consensus, which they've been very successful at doing up until now. And they've said they want to continue to adopt that approach into the future.
Mr. Ambassador, I have to ask you, previous U.S. administrations, certainly the previous one, did see as one of its central missions the sort of spreading of democracy, certainly in the Middle East, or at least of the values of human rights. We do see in Tunisia the country at least developing and moving in that direction. The Trump administration has taken a somewhat different approach, and it's certainly a softer approach on those issues. In your view, is that the right direction for U.S. policy to take in the region?
Well, you're correct. The Trump administration has taken a very different approach from its predecessor on this issue as on many issues. The Obama administration was very supportive of Tunisia. They provided a lot of economic support, security assistance, and just general encouragement for the transition to democracy. And I think they were very successful in that effort. The Trump administration has largely ignored Tunisia. They don't seem as interested in promoting democracy around the world. They've tried to cut assistance to Tunisia, although the Congress has reversed that, and there is still strong support in the Congress for Tunisia, both Democrats and Republicans, by the way. So it's unclear what the Trump administration intends to do regarding Tunisia in the future, but I think you're correct that they don't put as much of a priority on encouraging democracy as the Obama administration did.
But I'd like to get your opinion on the impact of that, and that does it impact on the region, or at least on those forces in the region, those parties that are working towards trying to democratize or elevate the issue of human rights throughout the Middle East?
I think it's always the case when the United States is absent or where the United States does not have a strong voice, that the forces of democracy around the world are hindered in their efforts. I mean, ultimately, in Tunisia, in Egypt, and other places, it's up to the local population to decide on their future. But if they can count on the support of the United States, that puts them in a much stronger position. So, I would hope that going forward, the Trump administration would give Tunisia more priority, continue the assistance that's been provided by the Congress in previous years, and also speak out in support of Tunisian democracy. I think that would be a big help to the process in Tunisia.